My Lords, when we debated the role of the House of Lords last November, and again on every occasion that we have debated the subject to which I've contributed, I've started by saying, as I say again today, that in a modern 21st century democracy, there must be a case that the legislature should be elected. And although it puts me, therefore, to some extent at odds with my friends of mine on different sides of the House, I have to say that I am generally in support, not necessarily of every detail, but generally in support of the amendment tabled by the noble Lord, Lord Newby. If that was all I had to say, I probably wouldn't have bothered saying it, because I think the noble Baroness, the Lord Privy Seal, must have grasped that there is support for the noble Lord's amendment from different parts of the House, and all I'd be doing is adding my name to that. But I wanted to go a little bit further into the noble Lord, Lord Newby's amendment, and point out that it's really very clever and has a lot in it that should attract noble lords, because although it sets a clear destination, it is very non-specific about the details of how we should end up, what the new House of Lords would look like in its elected form. What he is doing in his amendment instead is putting in place a process. Now, I think we all know what a process looks like. It has the sort of things that we find in this amendment. It has steps that need to be taken, and dates by which those steps should ideally be taken in a certain order. It's the noble Baroness, the Lord Privy Seal, who seems to have, I think, some difficulty with the word process. She used the word process in committee last week when we talked about various matters to do with the future of this House beyond this bill. And she said that we were in a process. But the noble Baroness is not actually in a process. She may think she is in a process, but she is not in a process. Because if she were in a process, she would be able to tell us those things, the steps, the milestones, the dates, the target dates that we find in the amendment from the noble Lord, Lord Newby. The only thing we know about the process in which the Labour government is engaged, the process that is so important not only to this House but to anyone who takes an interest in our constitutional balance, the only thing we know for certain is that her door is always open. That is the process, as far as the Labour front bench is concerned. There is no timetable, there are no milestones, there are no commitments as to what is going to happen in what order or when. And so, while I think it is perfectly legitimate for the noble Baroness, the Lord Privy Seal, to say that she does not support the process proposed by the noble Lord, Lord Newby, I think it now becomes almost impossible for her, given what she has said before, to oppose the noble Lord, Lord Newby, and to fail to come forward with a process of her own, which is what so many noble lords in this House would like to hear. Otherwise, she will show that she is really not being wholly candid with us in the way that we would hope. Now, the essential point about Labour's sense of direction is that they came forward in their manifesto with a package of measures and obtained a mandate for a package of measures. Some of those measures were to be taken at an early stage, The noble Baroness and I have had this argument about the way to the full stop. I'm not going to go through that now. One at least was going to be taken later. It was going to be a consultation involving the democratic character of the House and the representation of nations and regions and so on. Quite clearly, anyone reading the Labour Party manifesto would say that that was something to be done in the latter half of the Parliament or whatever. It also, if I may say so, explains to the noble Lord Grocott, why these issues arise on what appears to be a very narrow bill. It is because that very narrow bill sits in a context of a manifesto commitment and a mandate which is very much broader. And it cannot be separated out. Those threads cannot be pulled apart without having an effect on the rest of the fabric. Now, I'll come to a close very quickly. If I tremble to find myself in agreement with the noble Lord Newby, I tremble even more to find myself in disagreement with my noble friend Lord Blencathra, because while it is absolutely the case that any new system, any new composition of the Lords is bound to require a crunching of gears as the two houses, the two chambers, find a way of working together. The notion, as I have said before, that this is impossible, that two democratic chambers cannot work together, is simply belied if one looks round the rest of the democratic world, where it does work with crunching of gears, and not always ideally, and sometimes with surprises and unexpected turns of events. But of course it is possible to have two democratic chambers. But I will agree with my noble friend Lord Blencathra on this point, that I do think that these matters are so weighty that there is a strong case for a referendum. I'm rather more sympathetic to referendums than many people here and in the other place. I find myself rather out on the extreme wing on this. But I certainly think that there is a strong case for a referendum on the constitutional future of your Lordship's House. But I very much hope, coming back to my original point, that the noble Baroness, the Lord Privy Seal, will stop now hiding behind her open door, if that is not too much of a mixed metaphor, will stop hiding behind her open door, will come out into the West Front corridor, if not in this chamber today, and tell us if she does not like the process proposed by the noble Lord Newby, what process does she have to offer us?